I'm Gail Hussey. I got married in the church in 1976 and began working here in 1999.
I'm Bill Goode. I married a woman who grew up in the church. I joined the church, I think in the 80s sometimes. My kids were older, but I'm here in Tarboro and a photography studio owner and just a worker bee for the church.
Floyd happened on September 16th. And prior to that, I was at a picnic at Ann and Ben Mayo's house. And that is when I got hired by Bob Burns. And I was supposed to start maybe the next week after the 16th. I think that was on a Wednesday. So that following Monday, I was supposed to show up at the church office. It didn't happen. So it was a while. I cannot remember when we gathered back in, but when I started back for work, we ended up in the trailer in the parking lot. And at that time, it was Hildegard, Margie Clark, and myself were the secretaries, and Bob and Terry were in another little office in that trailer. When we started to work at that time, we still had to go into the church to use the restroom, but at that time they still had all the big
vents, air vents that were
trying
to keep it from all the mold and everything.
Yes, so you still had to go upstairs to use the restroom because downstairs they were still trying to dry that out. So it's still a process in getting that done. So
you hung in there pretty well, though.
I did.
But it was really interesting because, of course, the flood happened on the 16th, and I think it was 2 days after that, possibly, where all of a sudden all that information about the flooding was coming to us. The day before the actual storm, we had a lot of guys in the sanctuary bringing the piano up to the higher level because we didn't know how high the water was going to come. And we were bringing things upstairs. It must have been 20 people just grabbing things like ants all over the place. We were just dragging stuff upstairs. And it was really interesting. But then the flood came, we thought we were saved. Then all this water started running downhill from the other part of the state. And the water got higher and higher and higher. And I think we were not able to get into the church for at least 3-4 days. I was able to get with the crew because they asked me to take pictures, to get with the crew to get into the church for the first time. So we got into the church, and at the time I had this small little digital camera, which digital photography was just sort of getting there at that time. So we were planning to do a session meeting that night, and I volunteered to have them come to my studio and do that because we had nowhere to live at that point. We had nowhere to go at that point. It was down. So we were the first ones in the sanctuary in the church, and we actually had to climb through the window of the office in the back to get in. We couldn't get through the doors, and it was really kind of a sad moment. There's one iconic photograph that I took of Bob walking through the reception hall there, and he was sort of just grabbing things like he can actually save them, like he actually can save this or save that. He's walking around with books and some things in his hands, like all that stuff was trash. But I think psychologically he felt like he still wanted to do something to save the church. And I think it was pretty much an emotional time for a lot of us to get through that, to see the whole transition of how we did come through. But we actually had service from that time. We started our services over at the community college. But it was really kind of enlightening that night of the session meeting where I had a big TV set up and I was showing the session, the inside shots of the church and what it looked like. And it was kind of hard to see. To go through all that, but we kind of came through it, and I think as a team, as a family, to take what we had to do and get to the next level. But I'm not really remember how long it took us to get back into the sanctuary. Our first service here at the church was actually in the fellowship hall. I remember that. We were there for probably maybe a month or so before we got in here to do everything else. But at this point, it was a good way to get new carpet in the church anyway and get some things. So we had a chance to go ahead and clean the house.
And one thing I remember with Floyd working here in the church, one of the things I remember, you saw all the workers coming in, redoing things. And one of the biggest things were the pews. All the pews were taken out, but the water had gotten up to about along here on all the pews. So we had a company to come in and take all the pews out and did restoration on all of them, as well as the walls in the sanctuary, the walls we had to take out all the wall from kind of a little bit been away
Yeah, the plaster walls was a challenge for them too,
Yeah.
to do all that work.
They had to take all the wall out and replace it.
I think the water came up, I think almost at the top step. We had the piano, the grand piano was sitting up there. And it was really we were lucky on that aspect of it, to be able to save the piano.
Yeah.
It worked out really well. Yeah, it was really kind of a trying time. It was really amazing how, I guess, within that time period, of course, you had President Clinton had come to Tarboro. That was a big deal, and they set up down by Tarboro Savings. But it was always a great shot where looking down toward Rex's in that area to the jewelry shop. You don't realize the pitch and the difference of the city and the street, because here was Rex Jeweler that had water clear up to the top of their store, where on Tarboro Savings, where it was flat because it really pitches down. But it was really interesting to see the difference, and I can remember leaving after a week because the whole town we didn't have water, we didn't have electricity. I think we got out of town for one night to go to Raleigh, and it was really fascinating to really watch it flush the toilet and watch it go, because we didn't have that capability here in town for at least a week. So it was really quite amazing. But I think even today, still every once in a while you hear it. Everything's based on before or after Floyd. Oh yeah, it was before Floyd. That was after Floyd. So it really did make a tremendous mark in us as a people of the town.